Star Wars Clone Wars returned this week to the Disney Plus app with a brand new episode entitled Deal No Deal. I'm Cape Joel, and this is the video series where I take a closer look at the episode that was, give my thoughts and feelings, as well as shouting out any deeper meaning or thematic connections I can find. So with that out of the way, let's get to it. Now, picking up from where last week left off, Ahsoka is still the guest of 1313 mechanic Trace and her sister Rafa. Trace talks a lot in this episode about how she built her ship, the Silver Angel, from scratch and how it represents freedom and the amalgamation of all of her hopes and dreams. Too bad everyone agrees that it's a really cheesy name, huh? Last week we saw Rafa clear her debts on Coruscant with the dangerous droid scheme. Well, it's been barely any time at all and already she's got a brand new hustle ready to go. But for that she's going to need a pilot, and because the one she ordered drops out, looks like Trace is going to have to fill that void. This leads to what will be the first of many times this episode wherein Ahsoka and Rafa butt heads. Both clearly care about Trace in their own way, but neither one of them trusts the other. Ahsoka thinks Rafa is using her sister and forcing her down a dark path, while Rafa thinks Ahsoka is only sticking around Trace because she wants something from her. A very telling fear that lets you know a lot about these two sisters and level 1313 as a whole. What's cool about Deal No Deal as an episode is they actually devote a fair amount of time to something in Star Wars that I never really thought about before, and that is how does civilian space travel work? Normally we only see Jedi or military ships. Turns out there totally are lanes and air brakes and pilot's licenses, and it's all very close to regular driving. It's also here too, Anakin gets a very unexpected little cameo scene wherein he senses Ahsoka in the Force and actually lets her go. This is a pretty big moment here because it's going to dovetail very nicely when we see these two meet up again in the Rebels era for their final showdown. Now, where exactly are they going for this shady big money job? Well, it's going to be a very familiar planet indeed, Kessel. One day a young smuggler will do that run in yada yada yada, you get the drift. Ahsoka knows Kessel can be a pretty rough place, and even when the royal family welcomes them all with open arms, it quickly becomes clear that Rafa signed them up to smuggle spice. Ah yes, pure uncut space opium. Excellent for making life-saving medicine, but also for making powerful narcotics. I would really love to insert a destic joke here, but destics aren't actually made out of spice. But wait, there's more. That's not even the worst part of this deal for Ahsoka. The worst part is being reminded that Kessel's spice is actually mined by millions of slaves, something that Trace and Rafa didn't even know about, saying that surely if it was as bad as all that, the Republic would have stepped in and stopped it, right? Right? And you know what? Now that you mention it, Clone Wars, the Jedi and the Republic have had a really bad history with turning a blind eye to all different types of slavery, haven't they? Even frickin' Anakin himself grew up as a slave, and never once did he try and use his position in the Jedi to try and fix all of that, or even get his mom unenslaved, well, until it was all too late. The worst part is that even in the Force Awakens era, none of that got fixed. In fact, it arguably got worse when the First Order started kidnapping and brainwashing children to turn them into slave soldiers. And by the end of that new trilogy, they're still just blowing away First Order troopers like it's going out of style. Man, this just got really depressing all of a sudden. Now, as I mentioned before, this deal gets worse and worse all the time, but the breaking point is when Ahsoka learns that the spice is going to be headed to the Pike Syndicate, aka the biggest criminal spice cartel in the galaxy. This leads to another blowout fight between Ahsoka and Rafa, which Trace clearly doesn't like being in the middle of, especially when she hears that her beloved ship might be in jeopardy, so she does probably the worst thing she could do in that situation by jettisoning all the spice. Her very childlike thinking being, hey, well, the spice is the source of all the problems, right? So if I just get rid of all the spice, you two won't have a reason to fight anymore. A truly terrible idea that breaks the first law of any and all drug running, and that is you always keep either the drugs or the money, and maybe both if you're Tony Montana good at what you do. With no product and not being able to just run from this problem, Ahsoka pulls a very daring but also kind of obvious gambit, and that is that, hey, why don't I just use the Jedi mind trick to trick the Pikes into thinking they got their shipment? Man, Ahsoka, you haven't been a Jedi for like 15 minutes and you're already on your way to becoming Space Escobar. The truly crazy thing is that this plan almost works. In fact, they probably would have gotten away with it too were it not for one Pike underling who was particularly thorough in doing his job that day, which is bad for our heroes because they get taken captive as the episode ends. And so that was Deal No Deal, and it was a lot faster paced and a lot more in line with a traditional Clone Wars style episode. There's a nice sense of adventure to be had, and there's a much bigger theme beginning to form here in this Ahsoka-centric arc about her being forced to see how the other half of the galaxy far, far away lives now that she's not a Jedi anymore. It's good stuff, and I'm definitely excited to see where this arc is going to go from here. So until next time, everyone, this has been Cape Joel. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, why not follow me on Twitter so you always know when a new video goes live. And hey, if you really like it, why not share it with a friend even? Bye-bye, everyone.